we talk often about this training as a kind of liberating, a spiritual liberation that frees us, but it really frees others as well. Because the very same process that we go through inwardly to let go of armor is the same process we need to go through as societies, as groups of people. We need to be able to touch into the vulnerability and be in contact with each other so that we can really move towards peace. I want to share a story that touched me, that really was a expression of this, where we start to learn how to see what Longfellow calls the secret suffering of our enemies, and in that way start to come together. It's the only hope for peace on earth, is that those that are at war come into enough dialogue so they can see how their legs are in a trap, how each is suffering. Bassam Araman, Palestinian, he in 2005 co-founded the Combatants for Peace, which is an organization of former Israeli and Palestinian combatants in non-violent struggle against occupancy. He says, as a child, I fought the occupation by raising the Palestinian flag in our playground. We never felt safe. We were always running from jeeps to avoid the soldiers beating us. Our homes were invaded and children were killed. At the age of 12, I joined a demonstration where a boy was shot by a soldier. I watched him die in front of me. I became part of the Palestinian struggle. We called ourselves freedom fighters, but the outside world called us terrorists. I got arrested in 1985 at the age of 17 and received a 7-year prison sentence. We had been hurling grenades, rocks and grenades at jeeps, at Israeli jeeps. 2 of them exploded. No one was injured, but we were caught. Our jailers taught us how to continue hating and resisting. In October 1987, 120 of us, all teenage boys, were waiting to go into the dining room when the alarm suddenly went off. Over 100 armed soldiers then suddenly appeared and ordered us to strip naked. They beat us until we could hardly stand. I was held the longest and beaten the hardest. What struck me was that all the soldiers were smiling. They wore smiles on their faces. I remembered a movie I had seen the year before about the Holocaust. At the time, I'd been happy that Hitler had killed 6 million Jews. I remember wishing that he'd killed them all because I would then never have been sent to prison. But some minutes into the movie, I found myself crying and feeling angry that the Jews were being herded into gas chambers without fighting back. If they knew they were going to die, why didn't they scream out? I tried to hide my tears from the other prisoners. They wouldn't have understood why I was crying about the pain of my oppressors. It was the first time I felt empathy. I slowly realized that the Israeli occupation was because of the Holocaust, and I decided to try to understand who the Jews were. This led to a conversation with a prison guard. It was the start of a dialogue and a friendship. We discovered many similarities, and some months later, the guard said he understood now that we were not settlers. He even became a supporter of Palestinian struggle. Seeing how this transformation happened through dialogue and without force made me realize that the only way to peace was through nonviolence. Our dialogue enabled us both to see each other's purity of heart and good intent. In 2005, some of us who believed in nonviolence started meeting in secret with former Israeli soldiers. We were meeting as true enemies who wanted to speak. The Israelis were refusing to fight, not for the sake of Palestinian people, but for the sake of the morals of their society. We too were not acting to save Israeli lives, but to prevent our society from suffering more. It was only later that we both came to feel a responsibility for each other's people. I want to pause here because that's an important step. We start coming together. It's not because we're coming together feeling like, oh, we're long lost souls, we're going to commune. We come together because some wisdom in us knows it's the only way to move towards healing, but we don't know exactly how it's going to happen. It's only in the togetherness that we start discovering who we really are. I'll keep going. 2007, my 10-year-old daughter Abir was shot and killed in cold blood by a member of the Israeli border police while standing outside her school with some classmates. There were no demonstrations, no violence. I've been appalled by the details of what happened, not least that she had just bought a candy at the store and hadn't had time to eat it. I believe in justice, and many hundreds of my Israeli brothers and Jewish brothers around the world support me. I want to bring this man to justice because he killed my 10-year-old daughter, not because he's an Israeli and I'm a Palestinian, but because my child was not a fighter, nor was she Fatah or Hamas member. Abir's murder, my daughter's murder, could have led me down the easy path of hatred and vengeance, but for me there was no return from dialogue and nonviolence. After all, it was one Israeli soldier who shot my daughter, but 100 former Israeli soldiers who built a garden in her name at the school where she was murdered. This is awakening from the trance. The trance is that there's just a bad guy over there and they're two-dimensional. The awakening is they're humans, and there are humans all over, and there are many humans that want to build the garden. And it takes a process of letting go of the armor to begin to find out who we all are. Even if we don't feel we have the capacity, it's okay. We can't will forgiveness, but we can be willing. And this is where the hope is, that each one of us, if just our time right now together, listening makes us a few degrees more willing to pay attention. How am I creating separation? A few degrees more willing, having that intention to open the door. That's the energy that begins to bring more peace to this world.